My next guest was an MP for 37 years and served as a defence minister. He was undoubtedly one of the biggest characters in the House of Commons, firm in his views and quick with his repartee. The most Tory of Tories, he lost the whip over Brexit and, despite having it restored, announced he wouldn't stand at the next election. I declare an interest. We share a passion for equestrian sport. Please welcome Sir Nicholas Soames.
Hello, Alastair. Good afternoon.
Very good afternoon to you, sir, and a very happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. It's not an occasion one wants to be reminded at when you're 74.
You did that, not me. I mentioned there in passing in the introduction, Nick, that you are a former defence minister and also a former soldier yourself as well. What's your take on what's happening in Ukraine and telling folk to leave? How worried are you?
Well, I think it's obviously a very, very serious situation indeed. I'm glad to see Britain playing a full role in diplomacy as well as in helping train Ukrainian soldiers. And I think it's a very good thing that both the Foreign Secretary and the Defence Secretary are in Moscow. It's very important that diplomacy is given every chance. But it looks to me as though President Putin is imminently awaiting to do one of probably three things. I mean, I think he could either withdraw his troops, he could force a corridor, which he would quite like to do, probably down from Ukraine into the Crimea, or he could launch a full-scale invasion. But if he does, he will pay a terrible price.
Secondly, it's not a silly point because we've talked before about the importance of having men and women who've served in the armed services in the House of Commons. How important is it that Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary, is himself a former Scots Guard?
Well, it's always very helpful when a defence minister has been a soldier. And not only Ben Wallace had a very distinguished career in the Scots Guards and did very well. He was a very good soldier. You've got James Heappey, who's the Minister of State for the Armed Forces, who was a soldier. We've got Tobias Ellwood, Tom Tugendhat. There are a lot of people in the House of Commons, really, many more people than you think, who do have a military background. And of course, it's useful because they understand the issues and the items in play, and they understand also how our service organisations work.
Your grandpapa was, of course, one of the great war leaders, and I know when people attacked one of his statues, you were hurt and furious, but you're a tough old cookie. Do you think that cancel culture can be seen off?
Well, I think it is a serious worry in our national life that our ability as a people to argue freely and to have good discourse and good discussion seems to be increasingly under threat. I mean, I thought the behaviour of the dragging of the Colston statue and being thrown into the dock in Bristol, I thought was disgraceful. How a court could find those people innocent of criminal damage, I don't understand. And there seems to be a drift away from the fact you cannot alter the facts of history. And however disagreeable it may be, it's proper that people should understand it and the context in which it happened. What I don't object to people are often very rude about Churchill. They have every right to be so. He wasn't perfect. He grew up in an age, I mean, he was born in the age of Queen Victoria. He soldiered as an Edwardian soldier. And actually, he had views which would be uncongenial to many of us today. But you can't undo that. That's part of history. And I don't think it really made much difference to the role that he played in the last war and what he did for this country.
Bringing us right up to date, but there's an element of rebellion in it, and that matters. When you rebelled in 2019 over the possibility of a no Brexit deal, it cost you the whip. But the speech was very witty, but it was also pretty brutal. I'm just going to play a little clip of it, which you'll hear, but more importantly, folk at home on television and radio will also hear it. So poise yourself for the question. Here's the clip.
I want to make clear that I have always believed that the referendum result must be honoured, and indeed I voted for the withdrawal agreement on every occasion it has been presented to the House, which is more than can be said for my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, the Leader of the House and other members of the Cabinet whose serial disloyalty has been such an inspiration to so many of us.
It got a big laugh there, but it was a pretty tough point. Deep down, though, I don't know very many people who are more a Tory than you are a Tory. What did it actually feel like to lose? I know it was restored to you, but for your party to say, you're no longer one of us, Soames.
Well, it was a bad time, you know, Alastair. There were 21 of us who felt that we really could not vote for the Prime Minister's principal piece of legislation. And for that reason, and I mean, I have to say, looking back on it, I believed I did the right thing. I certainly thought I did the right thing. I wouldn't have been able to forgive myself if I hadn't. And I do believe that it was the wrong decision. But as I said in that speech, the nation voted to leave, and leave it must. We must the will of the people must be carried out. I have to say to you that if I was the Prime Minister, I would have sacked me too, because you cannot have people in your party who will not support the most important piece of legislation. You cannot have that kind of discipline. And I think he felt, and I detect, unfortunately, the hand of Mr. Cummings behind some of this, I think that he felt that if he allowed us to just be excused not voting for it, the consequences for discipline in the rest of the party would be very serious indeed. And in fact, I think you've seen that manifest itself in the last few weeks in Parliament.
Known anybody in those 37 years to have so poisoned our politics as Dominic Cummings?
I only met him once, and I can't claim to know him at all, but I think he's such an extraordinary figure. And I think he is very brilliant in many ways, but there is a terrible, what seems like malignancy about him. And I must say, if he was a friend of Boris Johnson's, he's got a jolly odd way of showing it. I mean, I just think his behaviour is quite extraordinary, but you wouldn't want to underestimate. He is a very brilliant man, but I wouldn't want him on my team.
Do you think the Prime Minister can survive what's been done, not least by Dominic Cummings, at his expense and all of the other travails he faces right now?
You know, I'm not in it now, and I just don't know. I really do not know, but I suspect that if the Prime Minister is charged with an offence by the police, I suspect he may find it difficult to stay. I don't know, but this is a terribly bad moment in our national life. There is no doubt about it. And, you know, I was talking to a businessman the other day who runs a very, very big business, a public company. And he rang me up in an absolute rage. And he said, I hope you understand that if this was me, if I had done this, and I had been made public, I would have been fired the following day. So, you know, we're dealing with very, very big issues where people have very, very strong feelings, understandably and rightly. And I think we need to get back to a more, you know, this country is going through a very difficult period. There are terrific events overseas about which we must keep a clear head. Our economy is temporarily doing quite well, but the outlook for our economy is not good in this country. We haven't really done anything yet with Brexit. The great Brexit changes don't seem to have happened yet to me. We've got some enormous challenges in climate change, in artificial intelligence, in a whole world of stuff. And here we are marred in who did or who did not attend a party. I think it's a very bad and difficult moment for our national life.
And talking of parties, I don't want to keep you any longer than I'm entitled to from your luncheon party, but I want to end on something, and I think it does relate directly to what you were just talking about there. In that 2019 speech, you also addressed the issue of the coarseness that had entered politics of late. I'm going to play another little clip so you can hear it and folk at home on television and radio can hear it, about that, the coarseness that's entered the House of Commons. Here it is, Nick.
I'm truly very sad that it should end in this way, and it is my most fervent hope that this House will rediscover the spirit of compromise, humility and understanding that will enable us finally to push ahead with the vital work in the interests of the whole country that has inevitably had to be so sadly neglected whilst we have devoted so much time to wrestling with Brexit.
That struck me not so much as being the plea of a Conservative as the plea of a Democrat, someone who believes profoundly in our public discourse being conducted with honour, dignity and truth.
But Alastair, I do believe all those things, and you know, because you've been a commentator and observer on this for many years and are very experienced in this. Politics is a rough old trade, but there are moments in public life when our discourse in politics and in democracy suffers badly. I mean, you know, the Brexit arguments broke up friends, broke up families. It was a very poisonous. I lost some very good friends. I hope I've kissed and made up with all of them, but you know, it was a rum time. And I think it was a pity that a debate that was so important about the future of our country was carried out in a pretty unfriendly way. We didn't, the discourse was very hostile. And the last time really that happened in our public life, I think, was probably in SOMAES. So it was a difficult time, and I think more than ever now, I feel that the Speaker himself was quite right in saying, you know, when my old friend David Amess was killed, the House of Commons came together for 3 days of public mourning, endless speeches, church services, God knows what else. Everyone agreed to try and take a pull on this, and then we see the events of the last few days, and I think people have fed up with it. I'm not just saying that because I've gone. I mean, I was just as bad, I suppose, as anyone else when it got rough. But it isn't the right way to carry on our democracy, and it sets a terribly bad example to other people, particularly the young. And I feel we should really seek a better way of doing these things.
Final question, and I hope you don't mind my asking it, but it's on my mind as well. Having served as equerry or equerry, depending on how folk choose to announce it, to the Prince of Wales, who's a lifelong friend of yours as well, are you happy with Her Majesty's elegant solution to what Camilla will be known as when that time comes?
I thought it was, first of all, I think it's completely the right decision. And secondly, as I would expect, it was handled in an immensely dignified and proper way, and quite right that this decision is taken before the Prince of Wales inherits the throne. And I think it was wonderful that the Queen did it of her own volition in her own time and made it quite clear what her wishes were.
I wish you a very happy birthday. Sincerely, thank you for those profound thoughts on democracy, behaviour in the House of Commons, where we're going and how we handle our public affairs. But most importantly, I hope there's somebody there that when you say, another gin and tonic, Giovanni, it can't be the late John Prescott, bless his heart, but there will be somebody who will make sure that the Soames hand is charged.
Thank you, Alastair. Hope to see you later on in the season.
Here's to Hickstead. God bless. Have a great day. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.